Okay, trying to go live here. I was running around at the last minute looking for something. I had it up here all along. So, let me just work on getting all this set up. And okay. That. Probably put that on top. And we will get I'm gonna have to go through and I'm gonna have to deactivate, activate. Okay, that looks a lot better. Okay. Okay. Oh, hey, it did that anyway. Double posted. Okay, we can do third live stream. August. Okay, let's save that. I can always go back and edit that. And if you're out there, give a shout out to let me know who's watching. I do see one person on. Okay. I have the overhead lights on. I do have the fan, the swamp cooler running in the background. I have it running on low, just for keeping it cool in here. I've got fans around and everything else. I've got windows open, but I don't think it'll be too disruptive. And still at one person, and I'm going to go through today. I promise I'll pay a little bit more attention to the chat and be a little bit more responsive that way. I've hoped with the announcements that that we're going to have more people coming on for this stream, although the last time it was nice. We had a handful of people, and I haven't had anyone respond quite yet. for, in fact, I don't want to go through. Actually, I want to close down my Microsoft Teams. Okay. Get rid of that notification. And so, and I'm not going to try and, I don't know, you might see me snatch a couple bites here. I still have my lunch out. I'm going to go through and I am going to mute phones. Or pull batteries for that. And I'm even running, still running Facebook in the background. And in fact, I'm going to close some other windows here. Okay. Have and the reason I'm looking up is that I have the YouTube side visible on my I moved it up to my big screen above me, and looks like we've got mics. I've got video source. I just see that one steady viewer right now, and I have nobody chirping up to say that anybody's watching. Of course, this is going to be visible on the playback side too. I know people watch that way, but I'm I'll get a little bit situated. Okay, that's good. And I mean, I'm assuming that I'm on time. Everything that I did to announce this, and what I'll do at some point too is if I just don't have a whole bunch of chat participation, I will get into a little bit of just kind of continue with the stream with the unboxing that I plan to do, and just approving someone to join the Model 25 and 30 group. I'm going to go through and talk a little bit about the stream next week, and I'll have to see if that'll. I'm just going to work with that format, but I'm actually going to do a live stream on Facebook, and to go through just kind of for the groups that I'm in. I mean, I'm going to advertise that, and that'll be created as an event. I'll have to see on that. Maybe I'll play around with it in the upcoming week. I plan it for Saturday, probably about the same time frame. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to provide for those that aren't on it. I'm going to provide our Facebook group for the PS2s. Okay, and I don't mean to be all the way interrupting in people's Saturday. And there's the Mall 25 and 30 group. But yeah, I'm just not having anyone. I mean, so it's an excellent connection. I'm just seeing that one viewer, and I don't have anybody saying anything. Let's go through. I'm going to get the okay. And give me just a moment too. There's somebody that was here last week, and I'm gonna go through and do a little bit of a shout out there to him, because I know he'll be interested in this. Okay, if I find the post. In fact, go through and search. Okay. Well, let's go through, and I'm just gonna mention him in what I know is my board. Okay. Tag him. And let's see if we can get anybody. Okay. Jesse, good afternoon. Am I coming across good? And I'll have it marked as one concurrent viewer, although my playbacks number is increasing. So I don't know what that's all about at all. But it looks like we've been live for 15 minutes at least. And I just mentioned to Lionel, because he was here last week, and I know he'll be interested in the unboxing that I'm going to do today. And I'm going to see if I can and so I'm and I'm not seeing as much viewers as I did for the morning hour, and I don't know if that just is falling into the afternoon on Saturday being a little bit more where or afternoon in the United States, where people are a little bit more wrapped up in doing other things and enjoying their Saturday than sitting down in front of the computer. And it is indeed a nice day outside in New Mexico. We have clouds overhead. It kind of looks like sometimes it will be getting some rain. We do have some deer walking around. And it's a very nice day. There's a lot of stuff outside that I could be doing too. And I'm just going through. And if yeah, that looks like. We'll see if we get another viewer there. You may have heard the little chime. Still chugging along. It's still showing one viewer, concurrent viewers. 1, playbacks 9, average watch time 146. Is that people just kicking in and out? Or I mean, I see the chat rate, the playbacks. Okay, concurrent viewers. I'm seeing 3 now. Up above. And get back to my OBS window to see what everybody else is seeing. Hi, John. How are you doing today? I said I was going to pay more attention to the chat this time, and it looks like I have a little bit less viewers, but I understand I'm probably interrupting people's Saturdays and going through. I wanted to try a little bit a later time frame just to see what that was compared to the earlier time of me doing it in the morning. And I did say earlier that I plan to next Saturday, I want to do a one of the Facebook group events where I don't know, I'll have to see and check that out and how the hosting is for that, and see if people participate, if that requires them. And I'm sure that they can opt out of showing webcam views and things like that if they want to. But I have to check that format. And of course, that'll be Facebook exclusive. It won't allow anybody that's not on Facebook. And it may, I'll have to see if that limits that to the, mornings are typically better on the weekend. I appreciate that feedback, Jesse. I think that's true for everyone. And even for me, though, I'm with my schedule, it's a little bit odd. And especially on Saturdays, my wife gets up at 4 in the morning to go into her bakery job. And I'm normally a later riser. I actually have my most restful sleep, because I'm not a real good sleeper. I have my most restful sleep after she goes in to go to work. The dogs are settled down. The cat settled down a lot of time. Sometimes he's awake. And that's just when I can go through and rest a little bit better. And so typically I rise a little bit later in the morning. The 10 o'clock thing last week was a challenge to me. I kind of jumped out of bed to get going. And I say to people that the first, if they see me, I've already got the hardest job of the day behind me. And that's kicking myself out of bed. Is really basically the hardest thing for me. The aches and once I get vertical, I'm all right. But it's just that transition time from going from horizontal to vertical. It's a little bit of a challenge. And I was worried today because I was even running around. And of course, I picked up lunch for me, my wife, and my stepson, the little lunch specials. As I said earlier, I'm not going to try and eat on camera or anything like that. It's red enchiladas, and that's the nice meal down here. They're probably have long consumed theirs. So I've got mine about half done, and but I was running around at the last minute to find what I've got underneath on the bench, because I wanted to do the unboxing for this thing that's in the IBM keyboard box there on the bench. It came in. I haven't unwrapped it at all. I don't. I did peel the label off the top that revealed my address, of course, so I wouldn't have to mask it out or anything like that. And they reuse the keyboard box. It's probably a little bit large for the object that's inside. I'd hope it has more material on the inside, but I was also trying to track down the item. Like I say, you see that kind of psychedelic color item there on the bottom underneath, and as being a little bit of hint for what that is. And I don't know how well this will have its time that it comes out, but you can see it there in the shrink wrap. And VGA Enhancer Z ahead and the user's guide. And this really is the very nature of the documentation aspect that I've gone over before on my channel, on going through and taking high-res photos of a adapter or planars, as the case may be. Even though we have the Major Thomas the diagrams up, he tries to put in an image front and back, even more than sometimes of images that are variants and stuff like that, and populating inside that page on that listing on what can be issues, like the model 85K/N that has the bad caps, showing pictures of where those capacitors are. But in the case of me photographing adapters, and I didn't photograph this adapter initially. Of course, I wasn't set, and this is years ago. I didn't have my camera rig set up. The camera rig being just beyond the ring light over there, and I have it kind of positioned high for shooting those big reply Model 80 planars, and I have lowered it down to the adapter. Once I get taking pictures of this adapter again, I'll bring it down. And so okay, and it's still showing me. It's showing me 2 concurrent viewers. I had 3 at one point, but that's no biggie. I'll move through. I recognize people do this in playback. It should be valuable enough content. And again, and we're 25 minutes into the stream, and certainly it was a little bit before I saw people coming on and everything else, but I intend this to be below an hour, especially for the playback aspect. I want, and I'll try and do timestamps. I need to do timestamps on a lot of earlier videos to break it up and get people to where they know, hey, it's just David sitting around and talking to himself for the first 10 minutes and get them into where the content is when they watch us on playback. But I want it to be below an hour, because just the long videos that take an hour worth of viewing time, even if it can be valuable content or somebody likes it, that's sometimes a little bit tedious to be that length of time. And I realize YouTube, you can pause it and continue at a later point and everything else, add it to your watch later if you see it flash up. But I need to be a little bit more concise in that, or that holding to that time for some of the smaller videos, just because people they get bored, they jump out of the longer videos. And I do want to say kind of out loud as we get into things, okay, there's a Jerry's Micro. Hey, California. And that's why I scheduled this a little bit later. And in fact, Jerry, I was going to be the aspect of your the async card that you have on an eBay auction, and he's got it for $14. It's a micro channel, and there is a fault on some of those, but I'm sure that the one that Jerry has is good, and probably been used at some point. I mean, he may have gone through and worked with it or whatever else. But I was talking to Thomas the other day about that, and it's mainly relating to the 55SX. And I'll probably get in that once I ferret that out a little bit more with Thomas. I'll go through and probably post a little bit more on that. But I pointed that out to someone else that was having trouble with the serial port of the MUL 55SX. And that can be, there's a different functionality to that serial port that's on the 55SX. And it's where you can control the FIFO buffer through ABIOS calls. The ABIOS that IBM created mainly for OS2 or more advanced. And then you have the CBIOS, and I've got somewhere around here, I've got my book on the CBIOS, which is the compatibility BIOS. That is the older PC style BIOS that was just in the F segment. And so I queried to Thomas, hey, where is this from? This text that you can only work with the 55SX serial port in a BIOS. It says, well, that's right out of the tech ref. I mean, Thomas knows his stuff, and he responded really, really quickly with that. But he gave me a little bit more feedback. I'm still a little bit confused on why it's listed that way, because it just seems there could be some stuff on where it's in the chip is on the planar and it's tied in a particular way for a different functionality. And a lot of people don't realize, I don't necessarily think it was a requirement. I just think it was probably the cost level, that a lot of time when you have serial boards for like the older IBM systems and even the MUL 25 and MUL 30, a lot of time you'll find that the UARTs on those adapters don't have the FIFO buffer. They're the 16451, or the 16450 chips that don't have that UART buffer. When you get into microchannel, just about every single one of them out there, and there are a couple of exceptions, but they have the more advanced UARTs with the FIFO buffer, and that's what my kind of question relates on the 55SX. I'm talking about that async board like Jerry has up for offer, because $14 is a really good value for that, free shipping. That's nice for someone to pick up. But and those have two of the 16550 UARTs on them. It's a real good board for serial side stuff. COM port. And I want to study that a little bit more. I have a async board of my own back here on one of the systems, and I want to study that a little bit more with the 55SX kind of moving forward. But let's move on. You know, still watching, paying attention to the chats and everything else. Watching that subscriber, and anybody, you know, wants to do it, put something in the chat, and I'll go through and happily address that. I wanted to focus on the chat this time around, not necessarily on me on the bench or anything else like that. But let's get through doing unboxing. I mean, I don't necessarily. This may be sort of an unboxing video later on that I could do. I want to see what they've included in here. And this is going to be a kind of an interesting discussion piece for all that, the way that it is. And I was really hoping that Lionel Harris would be on the chat. He was last week, but again, I can understand. Yeah, and John, I'm still on Facebook too, so it's nice to see. I want to be kind of have where I get notified on the other end, and of course, I have that kick up on my phone too. And I'm going at what I think is the easy way to open this box with the flap on the front. This is ultimately a keyboard, an IBM keyboard box. Later, not Mulim, of course. This is when they had the PC series, things like that. And yeah, and it's a big old wide keyboard box, and yeah, bubble wrap, but I don't like how that's kind of sloppy in there. I expect that card is wrapped still pretty good, but sellers, eBay sellers otherwise, and don't pin it down and don't squish it necessarily with the bubble wrap, but go through and pin it down in the shipping package. I mean, don't let it just bounce around. I even have stuff from Amazon that is like, it's in a box and it's got one item that is just going around conking everything else, and it's just incredible. And bubble wrap, and of course the smaller bubble wrap packages, I always talk about the time that I got since I did a special on the 46 CPUs recently, I got a pin grid array 46 in the mail in a flat envelope, bubble wrap envelope, the little bubble wraps. And the pins of the 46 popped the bubbles on the one side, and then it was squashed in the mail. Had almost every pin on that CPU squashed flat. And I told the seller, I said, you know, put it in a better packaging. The pins pop the bubble wrap. And he says, well, I wrote fragile on the package. And like the machines, the sorting machines or the post office, or that somebody handling that package, you're going to see fragile and they're going to pay attention to it. They're not. So, yeah, this is exactly what I expected. It's good. I didn't really double check. I knew that was coming in. Didn't I didn't expect. In fact, we can get to the point. Well, let's go through and let's clear that off anyway. Okay, and anti-static wrapping. That's great. I like to see that with electronics. It's summertime. I'm wearing the swamp cooler, so there's moisture in the room. But wintertime in New Mexico, you get sparks. And it's funny because I got a dehydrator recently. Kitchen for food dehydrators, and I'm actually going to use it for my 3D printing, because if you have that filament absorbs water and it actually becomes brittle, and so you try and bag up your filament, and the people have that live in wetter climates always have the dryers and everything else. And so, and we can pull this out alongside. So this is what they call the ahead Eagle board. And it's got the head system, it's got the chip here, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And in fact, Lionel gave some real good links, and I was going to even prep for those in a way. Gave some really good links to, and I didn't find the post. Let's do it another way. Let me look for, I'm searching the PS2 news group because I'm looking for, oh, it doesn't do that. Okay. eBay. And I suppose I could also look through. Okay, there's the post I just made. I'll have to find it later on because he gave some links to the ISA board and talking about the drivers and things like that. And if I remember a little bit more, in fact, I don't think, did I talk to Thomas about it? To provide, I didn't provide Thomas a link, and I was gonna do that. Earlier, and I haven't got it to that yet. Where's that one that we did? I don't know. I'm sure spending a lot of time kind of sitting around those, so I need to. Okay. No. And the seller had some pretty good information on. Well, I'll go for the first and the third link, and that wasn't it. No. Okay. Well, who knows? Let me get away. Let me get away from looking at my system. That's what people don't want to watch videos that way. Of me just looking at my screen. Cover this. I wanted to go through and be able to cover this a little bit of the background. So this is the head system's so-called Eagle adapter, and it is a video adapter, VGA. And you notice the one thing is straight 16-bit bus, and it does not have either the AVE or the BVE auxiliary video connection or the base video extension part of the bus here. So this is basically on its own to the system. Now it could be viewed, I don't know how the peaceful coexistence of this would be to something like planar VGA or another video board for the ability to do like a dual video, because it's not tied into the system at all. It just, as long as it doesn't have any I/O conflicts and the system has the drivers to run this thing, there's not going to be a where the system is going to be aware of it or the other video card, it's not going to necessarily be aware that are linked into this in any way. Now, this apparently doesn't have any ADF. Doesn't exist out there. And so I'm going to have to do that, and I may have to go through and see how easy it is to make up the ADF. Might be one possibility. And basically, this is a little bit of an ISA design, and that's why it doesn't have the AVE and BVE connection probably as well. That's just an ISA design with jumpers put over to being on microchannel. And in fact, you know, I don't see a window cover for this EEPROM, and I was pretty sure that the auction had that marking. And I do want to bring that up because, I mean, I went through and I don't mind going through and revealing it because okay, great to see a UK viewer as well. I did a little bit later in the day, and maybe that works out better for over that direction too, because being in the evening hours. You know, I always express, and I'm familiar with the notation, that the Mountain Standard Time is GMT -7. So I am effectively, with the Greenwich Mean Time, the what GMT stands for, I am effectively 7 hours earlier than you are in the UK. And I'm going to eBay, and let me tell you too, on the 46 special, I brought up that YouTube video of the micrographics, the going through and with the electron microscope on the 46, and I really was sweating things later on because I ended the video about ready to upload, and I generally go through and proof things before I upload it, but it had Adrian's Digital Basement playing, and I was like, and it was in some window I couldn't figure out, but I was hearing it over the speakers, and I normally have my speakers off when I'm recording. I do have them on now, but it scared me that content, that audio, would be put over the top of a portion of my video, and thankfully in the OBS software I had what they call the desktop audio. I had that muted, and so I could hear all my speakers, but it didn't overlay on the video, and I was very, very thankful for that. And so really kind of sweating in it, and so I had to be careful sometimes with this browser capture. And I already had another one in there. I'm going to see how this presents, because what I want to say is the reason I had trouble with the browser capture being on YouTube is that OBS software, if you do browser capture, it doesn't sign you in. It runs its own browser sandbox, and so it doesn't do anything with your accounts or anything else for that reason. But that's also a hindrance sometimes, as you can see with the eBay listing here. Sign in or register to continue, because this, even though I brought this over from my own browser, it's not aware of my browser sign-in information. So at least we're not revealing any details here. And I'm going to put on reading glasses. And that's why it got here so quick, out of Euless, Texas. I don't know where that is. I'll have to look that up sometime, find out what area that's in. But it did come quick. And people see the price. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about the price, because they see $149.50. And Lionel first brought it to my attention. Says, "Yeah, there's one on eBay, but he's steep on the price, and I don't have that kind of cash to go through." Lionel's really looking for video boards that he can go through and enhance his systems and work with the systems. So I kind of took it upon myself, and I chopped off $100 off of that to make it $49.50, and I made an offer to the seller. So $49.50, I'm able to pay immediately, and I sometimes try and, with the sellers, if they have more than one item, I try and convince them, hey, if I do a video on this stuff, the price, I would hope, is going to go up a little bit. It's going to be more of a market. And I know I don't have as much pull. I jokingly said in one of the live streams previously that I was looking for a flat panel, a basic 4:3 ratio flat panel to use out there. They sometimes come up, and they're really, really nice things to have around. And then V Westlife did a video on having one. It said, oh, this is so critical, having a 15 to a 19 inch 4:3 aspect ratio flat panel on hand. And I thought, oh, that's great, because it just takes, and everybody's interested in them now, and they go through and they'll find all the ones at low prices and everything else. It drives the cost up. But the seller did counter with something like 70. I mean, we effectively met a little bit more in the middle, but towards my end at least. And I was, with all the shipping and everything else otherwise, and that's what I made a comment about the box, is that the shipping itself was above $15. And to me, especially for a little adapter like that, if you're going to package it up, and you can easily note to eBay sellers as well, is that this is a little bit long, but this fits in the small priority mailbox. The box that, and you use a little bit of bubble wrap, and just as much as this was used with this to send it to me, and it fits in those boxes, and that is enough to protect it. And those things are $3? I'll have to check. It'd be effectively half the price or more of $15. But what I was wanting to say was that in the ultimately I came out at a little bit below $100 to get this. And what my interest is, and I've tried to work with other EV sellers to say that they have an item out there. In fact, I think this is also listed by Dream Hardware. He had one up, and I've interacted with him before in the past and said, look, my interest is in documenting this stuff. It's going through and gain all the drivers, gain a page up about it, and that's what you can that's a benefit. If you have more, you can point people to those the people that win your auctions. You can point them and say, here's the page of information on these adapters. And what drove me to it was that we'll get to the Enhancer Z that I have down below that. But I was saying he was offering one for selling. I said, I contacted him, and that was my first contact with him, that I said that, hey, if I go through and he's listing the Enhancer Z on this auction. I said, I'm the source of all the information on this adapter. If I wouldn't have been around, somebody would have bid on your auctions, and they don't have anything to work with. Nothing to tell them what the jumper settings mean. Nothing to tell them anything else, having the ADF or anything like that, because it was a pull, just like this adapter was. It was a pull from a working system. No drivers, no nothing. And I tried to convince them, let me participate and let me, I'm not made of money, let me get the item from you and document it, and that's going to help you out. Or I try and work with their, a little bit more of their nature to be of help to someone else or help to the community. But back to the, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to interact a little bit with this screen too, just to kind of show, because I want to look at the, and then, yeah, here's your $500 65SX, and that's a rare system, and that's over in like Romania or something like that is what the seller has. But see, he's got other hardware and things like that. I wanted to see a picture. Do we have to go through for the picture here or the C? Okay, there we go. And see, he's got, that one has a label on it. Why did I get one without the label on the EEPROM? Because that has the EEPROM version. I'll have to read this EEPROM and see, because that's another part of the documentation angle I did, like I talked about that fourth step. But it makes me wonder, does this guy, and especially if these jumper stains or something like that are different from the one I have. And let me go through, in fact, I'm going to go, I'll go through, like I say, I'm not worried about anything else. I'll go through and put the eBay auction item that was there, just so you guys can see, just like I'm seeing here. And it's so that's what I've got ahead of me to look through, but it makes me wonder if I don't have a label on this EEPROM. And I understand these labels come off. It kind of looks like there's a label at one time and it just may have fell off. I may have to look through the packaging or the handling or something like that. But I got to go through and I got to document this adapter, find drivers, and thankfully there's an ISA version out there that looks very similar BIOS versions. Of course, the drivers will probably transfer straight across as well. But this will be a nice little video board. And these ahead chipsets, I figured out that it's the same ahead chipset that's on that ISA adapter too. And I'll show my Enhancer Z in a moment. But these are actually the 82C 451 chips. These are by the Chips and Technology. It's just a remarked chip, a rebranded chip. That was the first manufacturer that had a VGA chip outside of IBM. And of course, most of the IBM chips being around are marked with the Seiko Epson logo themselves. But in my Enhancer Z, and let me pull that out. Now I've got a page on it. And as I say, that page of information that I have up on it is, I'll provide a link to that as well. But this is the box, because I got one of my adapters I got new in box. Always ahead technology, everything else, Enhancer Z. And I saw it and I recognized it out there, and I thought, and people were kind of interested in it. At the time, and this is years and years ago, and it had, since it was in the box, it had, and that's not my highlight, but somebody highlighted that had it, and at least they kept it together, or slot 1 for a model 55SX. We're talking about 55SXs, John, and utilize this signal from the video extension connector. It must go in slot 3 for PS2 models 50, 50Z, etc., etc. But even at the time, I scanned the manual, even before I had the resources like I do with the big old color copier. And I could go through and do the same thing. I'd probably pull the staples. I got a long stapler, and I'd probably just scan it on 8.5 by 11 so somebody could remake this book format. And then we get it in PDF form. Thomas can go through and set it as searchable, and we omit pages that are typically that are left blank by intention, so like that they don't have any readable content. And we go through and we archive the diskettes. And I should have. And since I've already archived the diskette, I'm not really worried about it but I just wonder where it is. I have to figure out where I've got it set aside. And ultimately for this, And I'll have to order some EPROMs too, because I saw one recently, and I tried to lay my hands on the older adapter I had, because I went through and I did copy BIOSes and stuff like that. I went through and pulled BIOSes. This is missing a RAM chip. I don't know why. I think this is the earlier adapter I had. And you notice here the difference is from that Eagle adapter is it has the AVE connection. And it still has jumpers for the ADF that's effectively for this board, and thankfully that's identified in the manual. But and it's got that ahead chip, but you notice there's no VGA port on that. It all goes back through the video signals, and this is a really neat adapter because it goes through and it enhances the VGA with the VRAM it has here, and even has, looks like the design was set to span that VRAM at some point too. That it goes through and it puts the video out the regular system's video connector, the planar VGA or whatever, with running that signal back. This is what the AVE connection was designed for, that so-called 8514/A connection. It was designed for the ability for the adapter on the bus to put video signals back, and even a little bit of basic audio signals back on the bus for work with whatever video board that the system had otherwise. And the 8514/A adapter goes through, and since that's vector graphics, it's different from VGA. It depends on the VGA for some base functions, and then its connector out goes to the appropriate adapter. And you have two monitors on the system, one being for the 8514/A setup. But that's one of them. And then when I bought the recent one, I told the seller, hey, I'm not able to lay my hands on what I have, but you know, I went through and got more. This also has the ahead, same ahead chip that all these things have, and this being that rebadged chips and technology. And then this last one, yeah. So this is kind of the Rosetta Stone, as it were, because that this last one shows what that chip truly is. And the 13th week of 1988, and when it was split into West Germany and East Germany, just a few years later, thankfully they were able to unify. But this being the first VGA chip outside IBM. And it helped determine immensely from the same board otherwise, same pinouts, everything else, of that ahead chip being there, that V5000 chip, V5000-50 PC, and typically /B. This has got a B on it as well. They probably had an initial version and then modified it a little bit. But all that is that ahead chip is just rebadged for this chip, and this effectively just puts VGA functionality back through that AVE connector. And I'll go through and I'll have to. I found a couple different. The BIOS version is a little bit different, but I need to copy one of those and put it on this chip and get the RAM back in. But at least I have 3 of these, and that'll hopefully be the point to going through and getting this adapter running, and this having that same chip, that V5000-50 PC/B, but instead of the AVE connection, of it having the VGA out on it. And so, and this BIOS sequence being kind of close even seemingly later than the Enhancer Z. And that's a ROM BIOS extension that's there. Then it has the RAM DAC here, which is unneeded on the Enhancer Z. And see, there's the FCC identifier. This is called the Eagle. And this has a different ADF, of course, than the Enhancer Z. And, but I've got to go through and I'm going to suss this thing out to get drivers and everything else. And the drivers that worked for that Enhancer Z, you know, should effectively work for this as well, is the hope. Or the ISA molds. I've seen a zip file that that is out there that holds all those drivers, but that is your related item looks just like my eBay. Yeah, I try and get out there, and I haven't been on eBay a whole bunch lately, but I enjoy getting on there, even though the market is not like what it used to be so many years ago. And I did talk in my my thing about the prototype boards last night about I've got to go through, and I still have those laying out, that I want to go through and make up a I/O daughter card for these memory adapters, and with the chips I've got here, and that's a serial port and a parallel port on these little chips, if you saw the video. And I talked to Thomas a little bit about that, and we're going to go through and investigate that, and I'll have to do make up some smaller PCBs with those connections and kind of see what the signals are for those. So that was the other thing I was kind of intending to cover. Otherwise, so yeah, and Jerry said he's out, and really, for now, it's showing just after 3 p.m. here. Even though I had a little bit of brief time at the start of the video, that really was probably before everybody queued in and watched. And I had Chris Lenderman said that he wasn't able to make it. He's doing videos of himself of his own to try and go through and to keep ahead of me on YouTube subscribers and the content. And he goes through and he has a little bit more of a QN process and everything else of he's going through and doing editing, which is just something that I kind of dislike on my my side. I just like pulling up OBS and running with it. So I'm going to go through and even though the participation has been wonderful here, I'm going to go through and wrap this up for now for this live stream. And I do appreciate everyone that showed up. And I do, I was really, I see the familiar names there. And I'm going a little bit slower in subscribers. But that was a big kick for what Curious Mark did. Just the link to my channel on one of his videos when I sent him the planer and the CPU. And I'm awaiting that. I think that probably a Saturday over there, and they typically are on a little bit later schedule. And that's Eric as well, the Snark Marker guy. And so real nice video and real neat to kind of see their troubleshooting aspects to that microchannel board. But hopefully they'll go through and they'll put in that microchannel planer that I sent them, the Bermuda board, and the CPU. It's ready to go in the system. It's got some pep. And hopefully they'll have a video out on that soon. And again, I hope with the packaging and everything I did for Curious Mark that he'll go through and at least show that and link in my channel again. And that should cause another good kick of subscribers. So I'm trying to, with this live stream, I'm trying to kick up that next week, next Saturday, I'm going to try and do this on the Facebook side, Facebook Live. and create an event for that. And that's why I gave the links of the for the Facebook groups that we have, because I'm going to create events in there. I'd like to get more people joining those groups as well, in addition to subscribers here. But we're going to go off YouTube for that next live stream and go on Facebook, even though some people don't like Facebook, to see what participation is like in that regard, just in the drive to get people more on the Facebook group, the appropriate Facebook groups, and things like that. So I'm back to schedule. I'm trying to do daily videos again. That's a little bit challenging sometimes. I do have a lot of content that I can do, and I've got little things. So that'll be a part of the process. And I'll go through and finish my lunch here in a moment too. That'll be nice. But that's all I have for this live stream. And of course, people can watch the replay of it as well. But that's all I have for now. This is IBM Museum. Thank you.